Star Trek, 10 alien species that debuted in the movies, not the TV shows. The Star Trek franchise is defined by its rich tapestry of alien civilizations. From the first episode of the original series to Strange New Worlds, new species have helped explore questions of identity, morality, and diplomacy. Yet some of Trek's most memorable aliens weren't introduced on television at all. Instead, they made their first appearances on the big screen, expanding the galaxy in ways TV never had the budget or boldness to try. Here are 10 alien species that made their debut in the Star Trek movies, along with how each changed the franchise. 1. The Xindi Aquatics. No, meet the Kelpian-like Sha'Kari entity Star Trek V. The Final Frontier. Although the Kelpians wouldn't appear until Discovery, the mysterious godlike entity at Sha'Kari in the Final Frontier gave audiences their first taste of a non-humanoid species as a central antagonist. This god was actually a trapped energy being whose race remains unnamed but is clearly extragalactic. Unlike previous Trek deities like Trellin or Q, this entity was all menace and hunger. Its introduction in a feature film allowed special effects to convey its true scale, and the idea of imprisoned cosmic beings later influenced how TNG and Voyager portrayed higher-dimensional aliens. 2. Whale probe species Star Trek IV. The Voyage Home, one of the most iconic non-humanoid lifeforms in Star Trek history, never even appears on screen in corporeal form. The mysterious probe in the Voyage Home devastates Earth's environment while seeking contact with humpback whales, its friends from the past. This introduces an alien race that communicates through whale song and shows no interest in humanity at all. The probe species rewrote the stakes for Star Trek antagonists. Not every threat is malicious. Some are simply indifferent and powerful, a concept that would echo through Voyager's encounters with species like 8472. 3. Baku Star Trek. Insurrection. Unlike many movie original species, the Baku initially appear to be a simple agrarian people living in harmony with nature. But their secret, centuries of youthful longevity thanks to their planet's metaphasic radiation, makes them targets of exploitation. Introduced in Insurrection, the Baku reflect a recurring Trek theme: advanced civilizations rejecting technology for spiritual or ethical reasons. They're effectively the reverse Vulcans, brilliant but pastoral. The moral quandary around forcibly relocating them became one of the franchise's clearest allegories for real-world displacement issues. 4. Sona Star Trek. Insurrection. The mirror opposite of the Baku, the Sona are obsessed with extending their lives through artificial means. Their grotesque surgical procedures and chemical addictions made them some of the most visually striking aliens of the TNG era, but they were created specifically for the 9th film. Their eventual reveal as exiled Baku was a classic Trek twist on identity and ethics. In one movie, Insurrection introduced a symbiotic pair of species whose relationship echoed the Federation's own internal conflicts. 5. Ceti eels and their species Star Trek II. The Wrath of Khan. While technically not a full civilization, the Ceti eels from Khan Noonien Singh's Exile planet represent one of the most terrifying alien species to debut in a Trek movie. These parasitic creatures implant in hosts' ears, rewriting their behavior, a rare example of biological horror in the franchise. They not only deepen Khan's menace, but also expand Trek's xenobiology beyond humanoid forms. Later series like Enterprise would nod to these kinds of organisms, the Xindi insectoids and the ear bugs in TNG's Conspiracy, A Clear Debt. 6. Caitian film version Star Trek. The motion picture. Caitians, the feline humanoids, technically originated in Star Trek, the animated series, but their first live-action depiction came in the motion picture as Starfleet officers on the Enterprise. These movie Caitians weren't just background extras. They proved that animation-only species could make the jump to live-action decades before Lower Decks characters crossed over to Strange New Worlds. The practical makeup effects brought their cat-like features to life, paving the way for other non-human officers in later films. 7. Deltans Star Trek. The motion picture. While the motion picture famously introduced a new Enterprise and a new aesthetic, it also introduced the Deltans through the character of Lieutenant Ilia. Bald, empathic, and intensely sexual beings, Deltans were a bold creation for 1979, Star Trek's first attempt at showing a truly other Starfleet species in a leading role. Ilia's oath of celibacy, required to serve alongside humans, hinted at rich interspecies cultural differences. Despite Ilia's tragic fate, the Deltans remain a fascinating example of how the films were willing to push Trek's boundaries. 8. Klingon redesign as movie Klingons. Star Trek, the motion picture. The Klingons existed since the original series, but the version audiences saw in the motion picture was effectively a new species. With forehead ridges, new language, and an expanded warrior culture, these movie Klingons redefine the franchise's most iconic foe. Everything we now associate with Klingons, their guttural speech, elaborate honor codes, and imposing armor, stems from their cinematic rebirth. In a sense, the Klingon Empire as modern fans know it debuted in the movies, not on TV. 9. Kelvins in reverse? Meet the Sibik's followers. Star Trek V. Sibik's ragtag crew of alien pilgrims in the final frontier included several unnamed species never before seen in Trek. The standout was the cat-faced, four-armed martial artist who battles Kirk in the brig, a creature so distinct it felt like a dry run for later CGI aliens. While these designs didn't get names or backstories, they demonstrated how the films could populate the Federation's fringes with beings TV budgets couldn't handle. Their presence underscored Sibik's universal appeal and foreshadowed DS9's multicultural space station. 10. Remans. Star Trek Nemesis. Introduced as the shadow-dwelling cousins of the Romulans, the Remans in Nemesis became instant fan favorites. Pale, nocturnal, and bred as shock troops, they expanded the Romulan Star Empire's mythology in a single stroke. Before Nemesis, Romulans were mostly a monoculture of duplicitous senators and warbirds. The Remans revealed a hidden underclass, raising questions about imperialism and exploitation inside one of Trek's most enduring adversaries. Even though Nemesis divided fans, its contribution to Romulan lore has lasted. Why the movies created so many original species? Star Trek's feature films weren't just bigger episodes of the shows, they were experiments in world building. Budgets allowed for new prosthetics, sets, and visual effects. More importantly, the films had to appeal to casual moviegoers who might not know their Andorians from their Tellarites. Creating new species was a way to tell self-contained stories with fresh allegories. Consider how each of these movie debut species reflected the anxieties of its time. 1979, Deltans explored human sexuality and boundaries at the end of the free love era. 1982, Aceti eels evoked fears of invasive control during a Cold War defined by espionage. 1986, a whale probe mirrored growing environmentalism and the realization of humanity's smallness. 1998, Spaku and Sona parallel debates over indigenous rights and pharmaceutical ethics. 2002, Remans echoed post-Cold War revelations about hidden atrocities and underclasses. By introducing new species, the films could tackle topical issues without being bound to ongoing TV continuity. The ripple effect on the shows, though these aliens started on the big screen, their influence trickled down to television. The Klingon movie look became canonical across all later series, even requiring Enterprise to retcon the difference. The Deltans inspired future empathic or sexually complex characters like Troy or Kamala TNG, the perfect mate. The Remans' aesthetic informed Star Trek, Picard's depiction of Romulan refugees and covert operatives. Even the whale probe shows up in expanded novels and fan theories about Star Trek's great filter civilizations. In many ways, the movies acted as R&D for the franchise's alien design and socio-political storytelling. Honorable mentions: VGR, the motion picture, not exactly a species, but its evolution into a machine lifeform presaged.